We're standing on the edge of something big, and we're gonna make some changes. We're gonna make some changes.
So welcome back to the Founder Sandbox. I am Brenda McCabe, the host of this monthly podcast where I am joined by business owners, founders, and professional service providers that are scaling businesses with great corporate governance. This podcast is now in its fourth season. I'm very excited to have Jen Apy as my guest today. For those that are subscribed to the Founder Sandbox, you always know that we have a story that's going to be told about the origins of the company and the founder and the professionals' experience as the introduction here. And we will always come back to the sandbox where we're talking about resilience, purpose-driven, and scalable growth. And when Jen, who I've known now for several years, we work in the same ecosystem, spoke to me about the growth gears, that is kind of the overarching framework of Chief Outsiders. I was fascinated and wanted to offer the platform of the podcast to get the message out to business owners that are scaling and have not yet thought about using fractional marketing services. So welcome, Jen, to this fourth season. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. So we did choose a title. You're gonna hear the word growth gears throughout this podcast. So the title for the podcast today is Growth Gears for Scaling. And Jen and I kind of share a similar background in the sense that we've been out there over 3 decades. I had my own consulting business. I worked in the McKinsey Company and reinvented myself around really bringing the expertise that I had at multinationals into the ecosystem of growth stage companies. Jen, tell me, you are a multifaceted marketing professional, over 3 decades of experience contributing to marketing excellence. Tell us a bit about your origin, and you're currently, I think since 5 years ago, the area managing partner and chief marketing officer of Chief Outsiders. So share a bit how your role has evolved and what's it like to be with this company that was once a startup itself.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brenda. It's been a wild ride. I feel like I was so lucky early in my career to work with fabulous marketers at Mattel and Intuit and Adobe, and now to have the opportunity to apply those skills to help small to mid-sized companies grow. It's really been a fantastic experience. I feel like this is my purpose.
Oh, beautiful.
To share these enterprise level marketing skills with smaller companies that are hungry for growth. So, when I meet founders or I meet CEOs, I'm always really curious about, what's working, what's not working, how do we create this flywheel that can help them grow and scale? It really is something I enjoy.
You found your purpose, and then I guess your purpose found you working with Chief Outsiders because you were also a solopreneur for years. What would be your tagline if anybody were to just listen to 5 minutes of the Founder Sandbox? What would be Jen Apy's tagline?
Such a good question. I think it would be something like committed to growth. I feel like that is my purpose. That's what I enjoy. And, now as part of Chief Outsiders, I now have 125 colleagues who feel the same way. They've all been Fortune 1000 and larger company marketers from a variety of different industries. I think collectively, we've probably covered over 80 industries, over 5,000 engagements. I mean, it's just incredible that the people at Chief Outsiders that I get to work with every day. And I do feel like commitment to growth is almost a shared purpose for all of us. That's why we're here, because we love to make an impact, to see that impact on smaller companies and, be a part of their leadership team. We say that we're outsiders, but we're really embedded as insiders, and therefore we can have that impact on companies and watch them grow and scale. It's very gratifying as a marketer.
And I also work in the small and medium-sized enterprise area. And last month, I actually wrote a blog on enterprise, the forms of enterprise and the like. Did some research on actually SMEs. How many SMEs, in your estimation, actually reach or go beyond $10 million in revenues? SMEs are 47%, I believe, of the number of enterprises in the United States. But how many actually scale beyond the $10 million revenue?
It's a surprisingly small number, like maybe less than 1%, but that's why we're here. We want to increase the chances that those companies can scale. 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. We believe that by really applying the market insights, customer insights, competitive insights into the strategies around positioning and offers and target marketing will lead to the cost efficient and cost effective strategies and execution that will help companies scale. And that really is the heart of the growth gears methodology and approach.
Well, that's a great segue. You and I met at the Recurring Revenue Conference, I guess in the 7th year. And as you walk me through the growth gears, you also have an assessment tool. Would you like to share an overarching, what are the gears, the growth gears? What are the key aspects that one can be surveyed about, and then and how to engage with the chief outsiders? Because I found it fascinating. And I actually used it with one or two of my clients to kind of get the wheels, no pun intended, right, to start moving, right?
Yes, so the assessment that we use asks companies and leaders questions about the business, about how much do they know about their customers, their competitors, the company. Have they looked at market trends? And then starts to ask about, do they know where their revenue comes from, where their growth is going to come from? Do they understand what channels are most efficient, and are they measuring the effectiveness of the marketing programs that they have in motion? And it's not every single question that we could ask, but just enough to get them thinking about where growth is going to come from. And so we use this assessment usually around this time. Actually, we're getting close to Q4. Right. And we use it about this time in order to help them think ahead in terms of what are the priorities that are needed for the following year in order to stimulate, enable, or actualize growth. So if anyone's interested in doing this assessment with me, it's free. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to provide you with the link, and then have a conversation about what the answers mean.
Absolutely. And Jen will put the survey or the assessment, pardon me, in the show notes. All right.
Great.
In addition to other areas. So talk to me a little bit about Chief Outsiders. You did say it was a startup at one time. How long has it been around? What's the organization look like? And what are the challenges that you particularly are dealing with the advent of AI? Okay. That's a very loaded question.
That's a great question, though. But Chief Outsiders has been around for over 10 years. I think we've been around before the term fractional executive or fractional marketer was even a term. I think maybe early on we might have been discussed as strategic business consultants, right? Because we were helping companies grow and scale. But we've been around for over 10 years. We've been on the Fortune 5000 for quite a few years. I think definitely 10 or more. And the way that we've grown is by really focusing on what marketing leadership needs to do for companies, which at the end of the day, it's about knowing who your customers are, where to find them, and then how to grow the company based on that focus on finding and retaining customers, whether it's it's increasing market penetration within a certain target segment, or finding new markets, or launching new products, whatever that growth strategy is, how to harness that and help a company to scale over time. And marketing has changed so much
I know.
over the
I don't know
years.
how
I mean,
you
I'm
keep
sure
up.
you've seen that with your companies. It's overwhelming.
Pardon, I will get back to the question, but many, many years ago at McKinsey, I was a marketing expert, research. We didn't have all these amazing tools we have today, the conjoint analysis, with your Excel sheets, right? Focus groups, right? So the sophistication and the
Yes.
channel, growth explosion is, I threw my towel in a long time ago.
Well, it used to be, direct mail and then websites, right? And
Yep.
then e-commerce and then it was about social media and content marketing and then SEO. I mean, it's just daunting. And now we have to be thinking about AI in all facets of the marketing toolkit, right? It's impacting every aspect of what we do as marketers. And we have to be thinking about AEO, like answer engine optimization, in addition
Oh my
to
God.
SEO. So it really is rather overwhelming. So I think that over the years, Chief Outsiders has recognized that the marketing tactics and strategies are going to change, and we need to change with it, but that the focus on growth is going to come from really the growth gears, right? The approach to understanding the market, understanding how to go to market, and understanding how to execute cost effectively. So recently, in the advent of AI, knowing that it was going to impact so much of the marketing mix, we actually started to develop an AI platform
Internally
for us
then.
to use. Yes, for us to use internally. What it does is confidentially takes all of the insights from all of the engagements that we've done with companies so that when we are working with clients, we can benefit from that collective knowledge and be able to deliver better, deeper, faster insights from day one for our clients. So deeper insights, proven strategies, best practice execution. There isn't a work stream for marketing and sales that isn't going to be impacted by AI. So we've definitely thought about that and made sure that we can leverage all this knowledge in order to help us be better marketers for our clients.
That's fascinating. It's kind of scary, right? So you've basically, like in the healthcare industry, you've anonymized, right?
Mm-hmm.
The plethora of data, right? Within the walls of chief outsiders of the 10 years of experience and I don't know how many clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
To then really document and have your own, for lack of another word, um, I guess, is it
The knowledge base. It's a knowledge
knowledge base,
base.
but it's kind of an ocean, right? Data ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and this is how the AI tools work. We figured we might as well have something that we can use on a proprietary basis and that can help us not only create our deliverables and have better deliverables, but also to help us manage processes.
Right.
Because as we talked about with marketing, there's just so much going on, so much to consider, so much to do. This AI platform also helps us to manage those processes. And, one of the things we haven't talked about yet is fractional resources, I believe, really are the future of work. And that's one of the
Interesting.
reasons why
Tell
I'm
me
so
more.
excited to be a part of Chief Outsiders because we believe that as well. And that's also part of the reason why we built this platform.
Right. So one thing that I want to highlight just from the last discussion here is AEO rather than SEO, or in addition to SEO. That, I mean, you heard it here on the Founder Sandbox. Not only do we have to be looking to have our SEO optimization, it's AEO optimization, all right?
Yes, so answer engine optimization, and that's coming, of course, from the AI tools. I think the stat is something like 71% of searchers, anyone searching, they're now using the AI engines instead of, or sometimes in addition to, regular search. But it's the reason why Google is losing traffic share right?
Yes.
Because people are going to these AI engines sometimes exclusively for certain things. And so this has had an impact on marketing in a couple of ways. One is we need to now optimize our content for answer engines, which it's
Right.
not that much different from SEO. We still have to adopt the same good SEO practices, keywords, relevance, backlinks, things like that. But now we call it LL or
Right.
large language model optimization in 2025, in order to be able to rank in those answer engines, we need to also consider brand strength and authority, citations, quality of content, sentiment. We really PR, from you know authoritative sources is really going to become more important. And so we do a lot of testing ourselves in
Yeah.
terms of how Chief Outsiders ranks in these
I
engines.
was going to ask you, have you done that? Right? Just
Yes, and yeah,
maybe
and that's
talk a
how
little
we
bit.
know that it's not just the SEO good practices that's helping to rank in answer engines. It's also these other things, brand strength and authority. The content needs to answer questions. Now it's these engines are understanding when content is authoritatively answering a question, and there's so many factors, right, involved in figuring that out. There are a number of tools we use to see how we're ranking. There are a number of tools we use to figure out how we're able to, I guess, for lack of better
Score.
words, beat out the
Score.
competition, right? And
Right.
score, right, in our content. And we use this knowledge of how it's working for us to help our clients as well. And we've been doing this from the beginning because we were very aware of all the changes.
Right. Um, so you have your own Growth Gears operating system. It's a remote working AI-enabled platform, right? That also enables remote and hybrid teams that come together. Speak to me a little bit about that. Growth Gears, the
Mhm.
operating system is effectively your LM.
Yeah, that's the I platform that we developed. Is called the Growth Gears operating system, and so not only does it leverage the best content, the best tools, but because of the way that we're designing it, and it's really to support us, right, and how we work, we are really enabling fractional resources and remote and hybrid teams to work together effectively
Wow.
on the projects, the marketing, the growth plans that companies need to scale. And this is kind of the way. I mean, if we believe that fractional resources are of economic benefit to both companies because they don't have to hire a lot, heavy talent, right, for long term. They can hire just what they need when they need it. And also as they evolve and grow, they might need different resources, right? So they can cycle through the skill sets they need. But also because there's economic value because workers, if they want to be more flexible, if they want to leverage a specific skill set and not necessarily be tied to one company, it gives them the freedom and flexibility too. So I think for both reasons, there's a lot of momentum toward this style of working. So the platform that we have, it can enable these operational fractional resources, not only marketing, but any part of the
Mhm.
organization in the
So
future.
go, let's go, let's take that idea or what you're observing in the market and actual client work a little bit further. So, how would a potential client engage with chief outsiders? They're at, 3 million AAR. They have not yet hired a marketing full time, right? How, what would walk us through a typical, for lack of another word, engagement, or how do they engage with chief outsiders? And particularly, the second part of that is if you're talking about flash teams, I think is the term that you and I discussed, right?
Yeah, it's
Where,
actually the title of a book being launched by a professor from Stanford, Melissa Valentine. She's coined this phrase, flash teams, which essentially is what Chief Outsiders does, right? We pull together the resources that a company needs at that moment in time in order to solve their growth problems.
Okay.
And we're essentially a flash team enabled by the Growth Gears operating system.
Cool. So I'm the CEO. I've got to hit some revenue milestones. I've interviewed some candidates. I'm not yet sold for, bringing in
Mhm.
a full-time chief marketing officer. Jen gives me a call. How do I engage with you?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll want to understand is what keeps you up at night, right? What are some of your growth challenges that you're struggling with? Because the first thing I'll want to do is really understand, what resources do you need at this moment in time in order to get you from A to B?
Okay.
And so oftentimes we'll look at this and say, is this going to be solved by a marketing-led team or a sales-led team? Sometimes that's the first thing that
Mm-hmm.
we're thinking about. And then how much do we know already about the situation in terms of customers, competitors, market insights, customer buying journey, channels that are working and not working? We're going to want to know all of that so that we can figure out the most efficient way to approach solving those growth challenges and what work streams are needed. So we'll bring in a fractional executive that's a good fit for that company and then orchestrate the resources that are required to get to the next step. And then when that engagement is through, we'll figure out what the next level is. Maybe the next level is bringing in full-time permanent resources to help
Mm-hmm.
execute and to help scale, where we paid ourselves out of the picture. Or maybe it's just dialing back to more of an advisory role and then bringing in fractional resources from different places in order to be able to test and scale and see what's going to work, what's going to land
Mm-hmm.
before we orchestrate on a more basis. So we're very flexible with what a company needs at any point in time. And no two companies are alike. When you're a $3
Yeah.
million company, you might have talent and skills and gaps that are different from the last client that we had. And we
Right.
know that. We can recognize those situations just because we've had so much experience working with so many different companies. We can very quickly figure out what's needed for the next step and just give the company exactly what it needs to solve
Right,
its
because you do
growth
tap into
problems.
your network of your 125
Mhm.
professionals with goodness, the years of experience that you all have obtained while at Fortune 1000 companies. Amazing. Oftentimes, I've seen you as keynote speaker. You do give and you speak at conferences. One of the most recent conferences, I'm uncertain where it was, but the topic you spoke to, Jen, was winning website traffic in the age of AI, what CEOs need to know. Can you, without sending us to, I don't know whether it's online, we can put that in the show notes, but what's the top, line messages from that conference where you spoke about winning website traffic?
Yeah. Well, I did it with a couple of my colleagues who are very experienced in digital transformation and now how to win traffic with the answer engines. And so we talked about some of the tactics that we're
Okay.
finding work nowadays and how that's going to change how companies need to think about orchestrating their marketing mix. So my colleague Angela gave an example of a very specific example of an article that had been written for SEO that now needs to be written for AEO,
Okay.
just so that people could see the difference. But I think the main message that we were trying to send to companies is marketing is not static.
No.
Just because you've figured out your marketing mix doesn't mean it's going to work 2 years down the line. It's constantly evolving. And so you need leadership who can be thinking about how are customer behaviors changing? How do I reach them differently? And the fact that 71% of searchers are going to answer engines, that's a huge shift. And
Huge.
marketers need to be ready to address that. So if you're a smaller company and you just don't have the resources to keep retraining your staff every year or so, and you need that expertise in the now. How do I compete now today? How do I set myself up for success? That's where we as fractional resources can come in and help you be that learning organization, that resilient organization that's going to survive through the next sea of change.
That is fascinating. Yeah, it's a living beast, right? Marketing, and it's moving so rapidly. It would be hard. I'm just to actually have the inside resources, the talent inside, unless they're constantly being retooled. So it is an opportunity to use fractional resources, depth of expertise that you have.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I value about the Chief Outsiders culture is the fact that I think what's made us so resilient is the fact that we're really a learning and sharing organization. We've recognized that change happens rapidly. To be resilient, we need to change and constantly be learning and retooling ourselves. And that is something we highly value. But to be able to do that quickly, no one person can do all this on their own. It's nearly impossible and very overwhelming. You can't do it in a silo. So we have a culture of sharing where if we learn something new, we'll share with the rest of the organization. So that webinar that we did was just as much for us and our executives as it was for the clients that we serve. And this culture of sharing really creates resiliency in the sense that if a company brings in one of our fractional executives, and let's say they encounter a market challenge or a sales challenge that particular executive hasn't seen before, they can turn to the other 125 marketers and say, hey, let's get together, let's put our best brains on this business and determine what things we might be able to try or what things we should put in place in order to benefit this organization. And I think there's no individual fractional out there that has access to that much talent and expertise on a moment's notice as we do. And that's part of what's going to create the resiliency that we need as an organization to survive in the next decade, because everything is just going to start to move faster and companies are going to just need that much more speed. So we also believe that's a value that we can bring in addition to being interim and not being full-time and bringing in the expertise they need right at that moment. We can also draw on the collective expertise of the tribe.
So the brain trust.
Oh, that's a good term. I love that.
Right? Brain trust.
I love that, brain trust.
One technical question: of the 125 professionals within Chief Outsiders and interim roles, is it solely in the marketing area, or do you also offer maybe in the sales? Are there other interim roles?
That's a really good question. So we do focus on marketing and sales primarily, but sometimes we're actually brought in as fractional COOs as well, or division heads. And it's because of our broad leadership expertise. And some of our executives have been CEOs of their own companies. They founded companies, they've sold companies. So they do have that broader business perspective, but primarily it's marketing and sales.
Excellent. We're going to switch gears, Jen, to the
No
sandbox.
pun intended.
That's right. That's here in the Founder Sandbox. I'm passionate about building resilient, scalable, and purpose-driven companies. And I like to ask my guests briefly, what is the meaning of resilience? What does that mean to you? Or to Chief Outsiders? It's a fascinating part of the podcast for me, that you have very different definitions. And that's the beauty of asking this.
Yeah. Well, I think that resilience, at least for me, for us at Chief Outsiders, means being able to survive and move forward and grow in the face of massive change, right? It's not bending to the will of the market. It's basically saying, you know what, we know how we can add value at this moment in time, and we have the tools to address this change and add value. And that, it is one of the reasons why we constantly are thinking about how do we bring more to the table for our clients. So in addition to the Growth Gears operating system that we created, we also have an ecosystem called Team Outsiders of fractional marketing execution resources that we can draw on at any point in time and create our own flash teams for our clients. So let's say we've gone through the strategy and we've determined that we really need an e-commerce expert that can optimize Amazon, or we really need somebody who can take charge of developing the content that's going to address not only SEO but also AEO. And we'll draw from our pool of Team Outsiders resources, and we'll put together that fractional team for the client at a moment's notice. So we believe that that is going to make us a lot more agile for our clients, because sometimes they just need to get started, but they don't have time to go hire, or they don't have time to go evaluate a new agency. We can bring somebody in, we can set the stage, we can get things going, and then let them have the time to decide really who they want on a longer term basis. So, agile teams, flash teams, it comes from our ability to be able to draw on this network of Team Outsiders.
And to be resilient.
Mhm.
Right? How about purpose? What's purpose mean to you?
Purpose. I think that when I look back on my career and also what I'm doing here at Chief Outsiders, I get the most satisfaction from seeing smaller companies grow, from helping founders make their dreams come true. There are so many great companies out there that just need a shot at the